From the campus of James Madison University, this is Midweek, a weekly show of features and newsmakers from around the Valley. Thanks for joining us today. I'm your host, Stephen Fogelman. Over the next 30 minutes, we're going to discuss a very serious topic, racial relations. Specifically, regarding the Virginia Beach incidents last month, who is to blame? Did the local law enforcement authorities act promptly? Has there been an upswing in racist incidents at JMU? And are these slurs limited to whites only, or do racists reside in all color forms? Third, what are your views on affirmative action in the workplace, and specifically regarding admission to JMU? Does affirmative action ultimately help or hurt race relations? And finally, does your group plan any counter-demonstration to the Ku Klux Klan march in Stanton on October 15th? I'm delighted to have three very, very talented guests here. The first one is Marcos Salinas. Marcos is president of Students for America, which is described as the leading and fastest growing student conservative movement in the country. He's a junior telecommunications and Spanish major, and he's a first-generation Hispanic American. Welcome to the show, Marcos.
Thank you for having me.
My next guest is Vanessa Jimenez. She's a student leader of a group called Together, whose sole goal is to end racism through communication here at JMU and nationally. Vanessa is a junior also, and her major is Spanish.
And international affairs, yeah.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
My final guest is Chris Hardiman. He's a senior from Texas, and he is representing the Rainbow Coalition. Welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, we're going to get into our first topic, but first I'd like to ask our guests a little bit about their organizations. Marcos, what is the main purpose of Students for America?
Okay, I have to say that our organization, our purpose mainly is to educate the student body on various issues, and we do this through lectures, films, rallies, and trips to hot spots around the world. So basically that's our main goal, is to educate.
To educate the student body. And you're a nonpartisan group? Or?
We're nonpartisan conservatives. We've got Democrats, Republicans, the whole works. So.
Okay. Vanessa, tell me a little bit more about Together.
Okay, Together is what we like to refer to it mostly as just a group of students, a movement of students who are trying to improve race relations through communications, in that we're trying to completely form atmospheres at all times in where students of all races can come together and talk about their problems and feel secure in doing so, because so often we tend to go into our own cliques, our own groups, and talk about the problems. And when it concerns both of us, it's only common sense that we need to come in and look through each other's eyes and try to understand where the other person's coming from, and in that way we think that we can really contribute to ending racism.
Okay. And Chris, I know you're also involved in Together. Could you tell me just also, though, a little bit about the Rainbow Coalition and its goals here at JMU's campus?
Well, the purpose of the Rainbow Coalition is almost similar to Vanessa's, except for the fact that its objective is to bring together diverse groups such as Earth, UCAM, groups of that nature, and get them to work together to support one another and promote their interests.
We've got three very, very qualified people to talk about this subject. I was wondering, first of all, if you could tell me really quickly what your views are on your personal views on the Virginia Beach incident. Real quickly, Marcos?
I think it was mainly a lack of responsibility on the part of the fraternity groups that were visiting the area.
Okay, a lack of responsibility on the part of fraternity groups. Vanessa, how do you feel about it?
I don't feel that neither party went down to start a race riot or cause one. I believe that racism was there because it stemmed from certain individuals, and it stemmed from a great deal of lack of communication and understanding that came not just from the incidents themselves that happened, but just from the history of the way incidents.
All right. And Chris, if you just want to sum it up, your feelings.
Well, I think Virginia Beach incident was a necessary occurrence, and I foresee many more of those occurring.
You see this as a trend. Okay. Well, we're going to come back. We're going to hit on Virginia Beach again. But first of all, there's a lot of students out there who we wish we could have time to have in the studio, but we don't. We're going to go and show you them now and then go to a commercial.
Basically, I think relations are pretty good, and I think they're improving.
You're getting a lot of, not really militant groups, but you're getting a lot of heavy activity, both sort of what would be considered pro-white and pro-black on either sides, because of differences in economy and social class, and I could see a lot of problems in the future.
We have difficulty understanding one another. Blacks and whites have different interests oftentimes, I think, you know, and that's natural.
There should be no separation between the people.
I'm glad to see a group like Together. I've heard about that a little bit, starting to form, and I think if people take it seriously, I think it can do a lot of good. I just see where both races have the potential to be really ignorant towards the real facts, and the real fact, I think, is whether or not we're going to put all this behind us and be brothers and sisters.
Litter. It's simply unbearable.
For your free kit, write Take Pride, Jessup, Maryland, 20794.
Lightning. Each year it claims about 100 lives. When thunderclouds move in, take cover. Stay away from tall, isolated trees. Don't stand out in the open. Don't stay on open water. Lightning is predictable. When you see towering thunderheads, darkening skies, or increasing wind, look out. Some of us don't have 9 lives.
With every step, your child gets closer and closer to the problem of drug and alcohol abuse. Don't let it happen. Find out about drug abuse resistance education, or DARE America. It's an in-school program where community police officers teach kids how to say no to drugs the first time and every time. Support DARE America before your child gets too close to the edge.
Boys Town, Nebraska is a safe, nurturing place for abused and neglected children to grow and develop. And now it's sharing its experience with other parts of the country. Boys Town, USA. For information, write to Boys Town, Nebraska.
We're back, and it's time to continue this discussion. We left off with the Virginia Beach incident, and I want to close that really quickly by getting a comment out of our guests on whether or not they think that it can be avoided in the future, and if there was any particular party to blame, and if that party should be punished in any way. We'll start with Chris this time.
The Virginia Beach incident, like I said earlier, was definitely necessary, and I see many more of those events occurring. And as a result of that, we have discussion now. I mean, because black people, black Americans have known for a long time that racism existed, that prejudice and racism was out there. And incidents such as that bring that to attention of white America, the media, and so forth. And then we begin to work towards those solutions. Mm-hmm. But I think it takes that type of event just to bring it to surface.
All right.
But why do you feel that it's necessary? Do you think that there are other events that could bring on just as much attention? Why does it have to be through violence, and where it comes out where there's people who actually hate each other more?
I think violence sometimes is possibly the only action to respond to this. I mean, black Americans have tried peaceful demonstrations and so forth, and yet we still see a backslide. I mean, it's similar to a dog on a leash. The master is content walking the dog along until the dog decides to pull up. And then he says to himself, what's wrong? You know, when the problem has been there all along. Okay, Marcos, you're a Hispanic American. Do you feel that the Virginia Beach incident was an incident of the National Guard and the local police acting out of racism?
I don't think the authorities acted irresponsibly. I think they acted properly. When you deal with such a violent incident such as this, you have to be really careful with what you say. I think it's kind of irresponsible to go and shout, racism so quickly after this thing has happened. And an investigation is proper, but it should be to find out a cause and not to find racism. We're not supposed to be looking for something so specific as yet, because we don't know what's going on. Right. And also, with Fort Lauderdale, you have a lot of white fraternities that go down there. Just about every year they've had these riots, and you don't hear people saying that that was a racist incident. It's not. There's no racism, I think, in here. It's just basically some college kids go down there had a little bit too much beer and just got out of hand.
Okay. Vanessa, very quickly, do you think that that the Virginia Beach incident was two parties, one party acting more irresponsibly than the other, or do you think that it was a combination of both groups?
Well, first of all, I wouldn't want to generalize the police and then generalize the other party, because there were individuals in the police who obviously, because of, in some way, were either already racist, so-called, or in some way something triggered them off to act in that way. Same thing on the other end. There were some people who just, I think everyone went down just to have a good time, but obviously as things started to trigger off, there were some individuals who either misinterpreted them or, for all we know, interpreted them very well and then acted upon them, which would be a racist incident occurring. So I wouldn't want to say generalize that this group acted wrong or this group acted wrong, but we have to say there were individuals in both groups who didn't perform properly, and I still question why the National Guard was brought in so early.
Okay. So. All right, and this is going to lead us into JMU. We're going now from Virginia Beach to Harrisonburg, and I want to know if you think that there's been an upswing in racial incidents here at JMU. Are racial relations here at JMU, is something coming to an explosion? And tell me if you think that you see that in whites only, if you see it, or if you see it with both groups. Marcos.
Okay. I think the racial tension here is a little bit exaggerated. It's not as it's not to the degree that most people would say it is. I can sense an uneasiness, but it's more of a just getting along and kind of a social atmosphere. There's no great prejudice like why is your race here at this university, which should be exclusive to this race. It's just basic. We need to mix more socially.
You need to mix more socially.
But that's something that can't be forced on people. It's racial relations is an individual topic. It's something everybody has to decide on for their own person. It can't be shoved down their throat by some authority like the government or the administration.
All right, Vanessa, is it getting better or worse? And do you see more and more racist incidents?
I don't believe that it is necessarily getting worse. If awareness is an upswing, then there is an upswing, because I think there are more people aware. I also feel that from my discussions with people in minority affairs and such, these incidents such as this have always taken place, but a lot of times they are either internalized and accepted, unfortunately, and a lot of times they're just kept within the necessary offices and treated as isolated incidents, so that there isn't a trigger effect and racism isn't on an upswing.
Okay.
You see, but I definitely think there's a greater awareness that has to be dealt with now.
And that's what you feel your group is doing, is trying to attack. Okay, Chris, do you see these upswings? Do you see a lot more racist incidents than you did when you came here?
Generally, just the mood of the country. I mean, racism is on a rise throughout the country, and JMU cannot be excluded from that. I mean, granted, it's just a reflection of what's happening throughout society. And to address your other question, I think prejudice does exist, I mean, amongst all people. It's just a common thing. But racism is a different thing. Racism, I think, can only exist in the group in power. When the people have the opportunity, have the privilege, the position to suppress another group, to deny another group access to certain areas, I think that's racism, and I think that's the major problem. And that's a problem that I think more white Americans are guilty of, simply due to the fact that they're the ones in power. But prejudice does exist amongst all.
Are you along the lines where, because of the Reagan era, that racism is also on an upswing?
Definitely. I mean, just some of the things that went on during Reagan administration. The fact that, I can't remember the name of the college right now, but they were giving tax breaks to segregated schools and so forth. I mean, it was just a number of things. People are more open about their racism now. They reflect the mood of the government. The government seems to allow us to vocalize it, allow us to act upon it.
Okay. You were mentioning Grove City, the Grove City College decision? Is that the one we're talking about, the Supreme Court case?
Not a college decision.
Okay. We're going to get into a big one now, and that is the topic of affirmative action. I think almost everybody at JMU has some opinion on this, one way or the other, and I know I'd like to hear you guys tell yours right now, and that is, With you, Chris, starting, what are your views on affirmative action, specifically regarding admission to college, and does it ultimately help or hurt race relations here at JMU?
I think if exposure